Good Wednesday to you, everybody, in Gov 603. Welcome to the midterm exam review. Bang. Oh, but before we do, hmm, even though it's, I think it's like 2, 3 o'clock, all right, I'm not sufficiently caffeinated, so we're going to get on top of that. Okay, I'm feeling much better. All right, so in this video, I'm going to go over the answers to the exam and then a couple of other things. And sort of set the table for you for your final exam, which will be comprehensive and is at the end of the semester. Okay. So first things first, I have finished grading all the exams. If you have received a note from me on your exam and or an email, I try to make sure that if I put something on there that really needs your attention, I email you as well. You need to get in touch with me as soon as possible. I cannot finish your exam until we get in touch. Okay, so if you're seeing this video and you're looking at the exam, you go, hey, wait a minute, mine's not graded yet. Well, that's because I've put a note on there saying, hey, we need to be in touch. Or I've sent you an email saying, hey, reach out to me. We need to be in touch. So to make sure that you do, because I can't finish grading your exam until we get in touch. Okay. So I'll say that one more time. If you received a note or an email from me saying I need to speak with you, make sure that you reach out to me because I cannot finish grading your midterm exam until we connect. Okay. All right. So in general, people, you did okay on the exam. There were some things there that surprised me. I don't have an average because I don't really do that, but just off the top of my head, depending on which section that you're in, say, because there's two sections of the class, there's 02 and 05. So I would say if you're in section 02, the average is probably somewhere in the high 80s, which is pretty good. If you're in the other section, that is the 05, I would say that the average is probably, again, excluding those that don't have a grade, probably in the mid to high 80s. So that's pretty good. Okay, that's B plus territory. So that's good. Okay, so let's go over each of the questions. There are a couple things that I had to change in grading them because I made a mistake in coding the exam, but it wasn't a big one. It was just a singular mistake. So I'll talk about that. But I want to talk about very briefly. And I know that we've finished with this exam, but this is prelude to the final exam. I want to talk about academic integrity. Okay. How can I put this? Look, my students, and I love you, one and all. I have been at this teaching game for 25 plus years. All right. And I'm pretty good at it. I'm not being braggadocious. All right. But I know what I'm doing. Now, I gave explicit instructions. That is, they were very clear that this exam was to be taken without notes and without access to any material, be that in the book or on the internet. And it's clear to me in some instances that there were some people that did use prepared text and did use text from the internet in answering the questions. And I take academic integrity very seriously. A couple of reasons. First and foremost, as a Christian university, okay, our highest priority is to prepare ourselves and each other as Christian professionals to go out and transform the world. And we absolutely cannot do that if we are not, honest and upright with ourselves. If we're shaving around the margins, that is, sort of cutting corners, That's not part of the mission. All right. So I take that part of the mission for Regent University very seriously. Yeah, I have to tell you on a personal level, I'm bothered when I can see that people have used prepared texts and or taken things from the internet, because number one, I put a lot of thought and preparation and giving you videos every week into the material, and then I try to be very clear in what my expectations are and what the rules are for the assignment. And when people either don't read or don't follow or disregard those, I'm not saying I take it personally, that is me personally, but as your instructor, all right, it's not giving me any love. Um, you should know, please be aware, and this is for future purposes, specifically in this class, because I can't speak to other instructors. I employ a variety of tools at my fingertips. That is, it takes me about that long to put them in place that check and can detect if something was pre-written or if something's taken from an internet source. And there are tools that the university provides me. There's some that I have that I pay for myself that literally scan through millions upon millions of sources in both books and printed online and look for similarities and not just word strings. So, I mean, the odds of that catching someone that's not being honest are pretty good. And then there's, my experience. I just know your voices, individually. I read your posts. I hear a script in my head. And when I see text that's way off script, this is an indication to me that, I'll just be blunt. You didn't write this. I mean, in the sense that it's represents a cognitive synthesis of the matter at hand, whether it's a question or the definition, and then your expression of that definition or explanation. All right. And I hate having to go over this. So there's going to be some changes in terms of what sort of preparation you'll need to do for the final exam. And then there's going to be some changes on the back end that, won't concern you, that you won't see. Okay. So there you go. Okay. Let's take a look at the exam. We're going to go over the questions and, I'll talk a little bit about each one of them. Not for too long, I hope. I don't want this video to go on and on. And you can use this video in the discussion herein of the concepts and the definitions to help you prep for the final exam. Okay. Now, the questions, as you saw them on the exam, may have appeared in different order than what I'm going to go through right now, because when the questions come up in Canvas, they're randomized. All right. So when I say question number one, I don't mean the first question that you saw. This is, how the exam was initially put together. And then, Canvas randomizes that per user. Okay. Question number one. Recreational research is best defined as research intended to satiate one's intellectual curiosity about a phenomenon is the answer. No, not research done for entertainment. And then I had none of these. I mean, really, this was a 50-50 kind of question. The other options were not true research, which isn't, that's just nonsense. Research that focuses on sports, that's more nonsense. When we say recreational research, this is something that you do just to sort of satisfy your hunch. It may not be free of bias. It may not adhere to a rigid research design. And therefore, since it's recreational research, it really cannot be used to say, well, this has good external validity. This could be applied to the general populace. This leads me to there. So the question is, why would someone do recreational research? Recreational research is sometimes done just because you're wondering about something, and and it doesn't have to be a full-blown research process. And it might help you focus in on a research question or a hypothesis, saying, I know there's something going on out there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. Maybe there is, and I want to look at it. Okay, that's recreational research. Question number 2. The following image is an example of scatter plot graph. Okay, not plotting clusters. The term is scatter plot is the answer for that. Question number 3, briefly explain the difference between correlation and causation. Now, for these essay questions, I have a wide range of what I'll accept, for full or partial points. Okay, the short answer is that correlation, these are two events that happen simultaneously, but may or may not be related. In other words, they correlate in their happening. They're going on at the same time. And remember the answer, the example that I gave you is if I take this little figurine of a water buffalo and I put it in my pocket when I wander around my city, and I say this water buffalo keeps tigers away, and every time I'm out in my city, I don't see any tigers. So that's a correlation. They're happening at the same time. Me carrying the water buffalo, seeing no tigers. But correlation is distinct from causation in that causation is the change in or the occurrence of within one event that is caused by another event. In this case, and some of you did quote that, correlation is not causation, because just because I'm carrying a figurine of a water buffalo and I don't see any tigers does not mean carrying a figurine causes the tigers to stay away. Okay, so something in that neighborhood I'll accept. I accepted, and I gave partial points for some of that. Question number 4, briefly explain why empirical research needs a design. Again, a wide, berth for points for this, but essentially that empirical research needs a design, because if you don't have a design, if you don't have a structured plan with a hypothesis that you start with, a literature review, a good systematic evaluation of the evidence, then you're likely to have problems creep in, like bias, like improper sample size, like no empirical evaluation of data. So you've got to have a design for this. Again, I had a wide range of the answers that I accepted. And for yourself, I got to tell you, the best way to go about constructing a research design is to start with a hypothesis. Start with two or more variables in which you make a prediction about the causal relationship of the one variable to the other or others. That is an excellent way to start your research, because then you'll know what kind of a literature review you're going to have. What is the background? And it typically revolves around these two variables and then the relationship between the two of them. What kind of data are you going to have to go get in order to test if there's a causal relationship between these two variables? How do you need to evaluate the data? So, what are you doing? Are you going to do a t-test? Are you going to do a simple regression? And then how will you interpret that evaluation? All right. So if you start with a good hypothesis, it makes it much, much easier to put together a design and go from there. Okay. Question number 5. Why is it hard for some researchers to see their blind spots? The answer is researchers sometimes lack intellectual humility. Not researchers are sometimes nearsighted, which is an optical condition that, you wear glasses for. Bias is encouraged in academic research. No, it's not. Researchers are often not sufficiently caffeinated. Well, that's not a problem around here. That may be a problem somewhere else. Okay, question number 6. A hypothesis is comprised of which of the following 3 elements? And the correct answer is at least 2 variables, a causal, and that's important, causal prediction of one variable to the other, and a causal direction of one variable to the other, because you can have bidirectional causes. I mean, you could say that, let me just think up one here really quick that doesn't involve muddy boots and upset wives. Okay. So you could say, that the level of climbing over the frequency of climbing over the fence is positively correlated to being bitten by the dog. All right. Well, you could look at that the other way to say that the dog bites, its biting is positively, the amount of biting it does is positively correlated to how many people climb over the fence. But we're not looking at it that way in this hypothesis. We're looking at it, climb the fence, your likelihood of getting bit by the dog, not likelihood of dog biting someone climbing the fence. You might be saying, well, what's the difference? Well, you're just looking at it from a different direction. Okay. Question number 7. How do you determine the mean of a data set? And this one, mean and mode, these kinds of terms you just have to have memorized and down cold. That is, the mean is calculated by adding all the numbers in a data set and then dividing the number of values in the set. So if I wanted to calculate, the mean for this test, I'd add up all of the test scores and then divide by the number of test scores. Now, the mean is particularly important when you're doing things like t-test, because you want to see if those averages between two groups, and t-tests are frequently done with two groups doing the same thing, if there's any statistically significant difference in the means, in the average outcome when these two groups do the same thing, or these two groups in relationship to an outcome. So for instance, who smoke and people who don't smoke, and then the outcome being cancer. Is there any significant difference between, the average, so think of the bell curve, people that smoke and people that don't smoke in the incidence of cancer? All right, so this is important in statistics, knowing what the mean is. Question number 8, true or false, according to Alan Smith, people should be interested in statistics because statistics is the study of human behavior. This is true. Now, somebody sent me an email saying, I don't think this should be true. I think this should be false because that's not what Alan Smith said in his TED Talk. Yes, it is. He gave a number of examples like teen pregnancy and smoking. Now, true, the talk was focused and centered on and around numerical literacy, or a lack thereof, and his concern for it. But his point in the talk was, the problem with a lack of numerical literacy is not that people in various countries don't have strong math backgrounds per se. I mean, that can be problematic, but that if they're not interested in statistics, which shows a waning interest in one another. And you can say human behavior, you can say tendencies, you can say it's all about us. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So the answer is true. Question number 9, true or false? The Pareto distribution predicts 50% of the work is done by 50% of the workers. That's false. It's 80-20. Okay, I made those numbers up. Question 10, true or false? A good literature review should contain an article by article summary of the scholarly pieces you read. False, right? That is an annotated bibliography with a whole bunch of other stuff that is not just a summary of the articles that you read, but then in the annotated bibliography, you're talking about the methodology of the researcher in that article, whether they did or didn't do a good job, some of the major findings, some of the major shortcomings. Okay, that's not a literature review. If you're not sure what a literature review is, and you're going to be doing one for the second part of your paper, make sure that you go to somewhere like Purdue OWL and take a look. And I've put a link, a number of places, but just go on there. You can just Google Purdue OWL literature review, and then make sure that you're using APA, okay? Because that's what we use in the social sciences, American Psychiatric Association for our style. Okay. Question number 11, why should we be cautious of a single causal explanation regarding an individual's behavior? Here again, I gave you a wide berth in terms of answers that I accept, but the fundamental answer is that people and their behavior is really complex. And so to reduce it to a single thing is not a full picture. Now you might be saying, but Dr. Gardner, I see this all the time. Well, that's true. That is, and it's easier to handle a research project when you're dealing with two variables, say the outcome, Van Gogh cutting off his ear, and then that's the dependent variable. And the independent variable was, what in the world was it? Now, one of the things that researchers do when they look at single, causes, and so you have two variables, the one that is causing and the one that's caused, the independent and the dependent variable. We call that bivariate, two variables. Is you look for what you believe to be the most significant cause. The most significant cause. Now that goes on all the time in research, okay, and in political science. If you're working on a campaign and you have to come up with a strategy to figure out how to reach people or how to get people to vote a certain way or how to move people on a certain policy point, excuse me, you do not have time for infinite multiple, variables and variate analysis. You need to try to figure out what's the one or two of variables that drives people's behavior, and then construct your research around that. Okay, question number 12. Why should a researcher be concerned about the relationship to two or more variables? The answer is determining causal relationships between two or more variables is fundamental to scientific inquiry. In fact, it's the whole point. Okay, so what goes around comes around. No, all variables are composed of the same fundamental elements. No, scholars understand that one thing leads to another. No. Okay. Question number 13. What is external validity? External validity is the degree to which the finding of a study can be generalized to a larger population. Okay. External validity is not the primary insight from any empirical study. That was another one. Primary insight is what's going on in the group. External validity is what happens among those individuals who did not participate in the study. I just made that up. External validity is the ability to apply research findings to other empirical studies. That may be true, but that's not the measure of external validity. All right. The measure of external validity is, can it be generalized to the population at large? Question 14, it briefly explained the difference between qualitative and quantitative research. Here again, I gave you a wide, range of answers that I would give full or partial credit for. But, remember, it's, simplify it like this. Quantitative analysis uses numbers to answer research questions, and that includes hypotheses, okay? While qualitative uses narrative, and this can be gathered in various ways to answer research questions. So narrative from sitting down and interviewing people. A lot of qualitative research is what's called content analysis or meta-content analysis, in which the researcher looks at several studies and looks at the findings of those studies. Now, that can be done quantitatively as well as qualitatively. So let's say you look at the interviews or articles written, you're looking for keywords used in a whole bunch of articles on a particular subject. Maybe you're in political science, this happens a lot when you say you're researching the media and you want to find out what's the perception, the media perception of a candidate. Okay, well, you could do a content analysis of a bunch of media sources, online, whether it's Fox, ABC, et cetera, and then you could look for keywords, keywords that are accepted and understood as coded to favorable and unfavorable, and see how many times those come up and try to establish a pattern. Okay, so when we say narrative, we're not just talking about you sitting down and talking to somebody. Okay, question number 15. True or false, research that lacks good external validity could be characterized as recreational research. It could also be the answer is true. It could also be characterized as junk. All right. I didn't say it's exclusively characterized as, it is recreational research. Not intentionally tricky, but I want you to understand sort of the subtleties of this. I mean, come on. If we just have a class in which I say, okay, class, everybody pay attention. Here's the lesson for today. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. And then I say, okay, class, here's the question. What's the order of numbers and letters? And everybody goes, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. We teach a parrot how to do that. We're thinking here. Okay, some of you got that wrong. Question number 16, true or false? Randomly selecting a sample for study is critical to guard against research bias. The answer is true. I inadvertently coded that incorrectly. That is, when I click I set the exam up. I didn't realize I clicked on false. And so if you answered false, I think I gave everybody credit for that. I went back and recoded it. Okay. So I think everybody got credit for 16. The answer is true. Randomly selecting a sample for a study is critical to guard against research bias. Okay. Question number 17. Which of the following is another term for 68, 95, and 99% rule? This is the confidence interval. This I told you, gave to you in my videos, which are also fair game for the exam. Okay. So it's not external validity. It's not Pareto distribution. It's not rule of thumb. Which of the following is the best definition of stratified random sampling, a process by which a population being studied is divided into subgroups or strata based on specific characteristic or attributes such as age, gender, income, location, and so on. Okay, that one's just what it is. Question number 19, what is a t-test and why would a researcher use it? A t-test measures the means of two groups to see if their difference is, and this is the important part, statistically significant. Okay, not measures temperature of tea. I'm making that up. A t-test measures the intersection of two data points. That's also nonsense. Don't fall for it. Question number 20, the acronym ANOVA stands for Analysis of Variance. And as we get a little further into the class now in these, the back 8 weeks, we're going to talk more about ANOVA. And it's really very simple. Okay. A t-test looks at the means between two groups and their relationship to a same thing, like smokers, non-smokers. So those are the two groups. I'm getting my my pad for drawing here. And the incidence of cancer. Oh, here it is. Let me just pull it off of the shelf. Okay. So in effect, a t-test is taking an XY graph, looking at how the data plays out on that graph, right? Because actually, even when you interview the same group and you ask them the same questions, answers to your questions can vary depending on time of day, depending on if they've eaten, depending on whether, the time of year. So you're not going to get exactly the same answers, even from exactly the same group. But let's say you're interviewing you're interviewing the same group, but you're looking for how they, you actually have two different groups. So in the example that we used, we had smokers and non-smokers. Okay, so this is a t-test, right? You're looking at the means, the average of whatever it is you want to know about smokers and non-smokers. Cancer, cardiovascular disease. Do they vote for certain candidates? Is there any preference among people that use certain tobacco products for Democrat or Republican? That's an interesting question. Now, I don't know what you would do with the answer to that question, but that is an interesting one. Okay. And ANOVA, on the other hand, standing for Analysis of Variance. Okay. And that's the key word, variance. You are taking a look at it's like a t-test. All right. I'm drawing on the pad here. Okay. And let's just, we'll just represent this by X's. Okay. You're taking a look in the variance, the variation of behaviors among groups and weighed against the general populace. So you're not just looking at the means. You're looking at the variation of the means, say from here to here, right? Or from here to here. This is like nothing is going on, and this is like everything is going on max, and this is an average. Okay, well, what's the variance from here to here as opposed to here in a couple of groups. Okay, that's an analysis of variance. All right, we're going to talk more about that as the semester goes on. Okay, and in effect, when you're doing this simple regression analysis for this week, that is a variance test. You're looking at what is the relationship of comorbidities, 0, 1, or 2 or more, to severe outcomes from having COVID-19. What is the variation between no comorbidities, severe outcome, and one comorbidity, severe outcome, 2 or more comorbidities, severe outcome? How do those vary between those three and between themselves? 0 comorbidity, severe outcome, 1 comorbidity, severe outcome, 2 or more, severe outcome. What's the variance? And you're looking at it in percentage, and that's R value. Okay. Question 21. Which of the following best defines empirical research? Empirical research relies on verifiable, observable data to confirm, disprove, or answer a stated hypothesis or research question. That's pretty much straightforward. Question number 22. The graph above is a line graph. It's not a bar graph. It's not a dot-to-dot graph. It's not a point graph. Okay, that's just don't fall for that. Question number 3. Briefly explain how a hypothesis is different from a research question. Try to keep this simple. All right. Remember, a hypothesis makes a prediction about the causal relationship between variables, and the prediction has a direction. All right. A research question, this just poses a question that may or may not make a prediction. It might be completely open-ended. It might be, is there is there a phenomenon here at all? Is there anything going on? Or do people, research question, do people who smoke get cancer at a higher rate than people who don't smoke? Okay, it's open-ended. Okay. Question number 4, the number of cases or data points in a study is represented by which letter? Lowercase n. Question 25, finally, true or false, the sampling error helps to evaluate how representative the sample of a study is of the whole population. True. All right. And that's important because if you have a high sampling error, that means that the group that you're studying is not representative of the whole population that you're going to suggest this behavior is occurring in. So you want to keep that sampling error down low. All right. Okay. So now I've gone through all the questions, given you the answers. Just to wrap up, if you have any questions about the questions, email me. If you've received an email from me asking you to get in touch with me, get in touch with me. Okay. I can't finish grading your exam until we have a chance to connect. All right, everybody. That's half an hour. That's longer than I wanted. I hope, maybe you turn this thing off and take a break during the video. I would. I will see you later this week. If you have any questions about the simple regression, let me know. I hope you're going to find this exercise, if not enjoyable, illuminating, illustrating it. And you can start plugging in other numbers to the regression calculator. But just remember this: with any software that does calculations for you, the rule of thumb, the thing to watch out for is garbage in, garbage out. If you throw in numbers that aren't actually grounded in fact, you're gonna get results. You'll get results. The calculator's stupid. It doesn't know where you got the numbers from. You're gonna get results that are also not grounded in fact. Okay, so as a researcher, make sure that you have a good solid methodology for gathering that data in the first place before you put it into the software to evaluate it. All right, everybody, have a great week, and I will see you on Canvas. God bless.